Let's continue our makeup lecture by looking at the second example using Java SDK. Although the command line interface that we just saw is pretty convenient to use, but it's only good for simple tasks. It's very fast for prototyping simple things, but if you want to implement sophisticated logic in your program, then you have to choose a appropriate high-level language like Java, and then use the SDK provided by AWS for Java to interact with the AWS as part of your Java program. So the Java SDK also has some guides that you can find from AWS from its documentation. So the one that we'll look at first is the developer guide. Let me open it. Okay, so this is developer guide. This tells us what are the initial steps that we need to do to have the SDK ready, and it also provides some samples. So how do we set up the AWS SDK? So first of all, let me see. So let's go to get started. First of all, just like the command line interface, you need to sign up AWS account, and you need to create the IAM user. Okay, so this will be the last time that I emphasize again. You must use IAM user for your program, for your project, including both the command line interface and the Java SDK that you will use for your project. Okay, both are required for the project. And the IAM user, just give it make it a power user. That should be sufficient. So once you have those prerequisites, then you need to have a Java development environment ready. Right? So you need a Java SDK before you can use a AWS SDK for Java. So the Java SDK can be downloaded here. Okay, assuming you have done something like this before when you are learning Java classes, Java programming. So you can find it, go to this link here. Okay, there are a bunch of Java options that you can download. The one that I chose is Java SE8. Okay, I find it works well for me, so you can also try this one. SDK environment 8, version 8. Right, so I want to show you how to install Java SDK because that's all just about Java. Here I want to focus on the AWS SDK. Once you have the Java in programming development environment ready, then you can go ahead to install the AWS SDK for Java. Okay, so you can go to this link here to download it. Right, so this is link to download it, AWS SDK for Java. Right, if you prefer to, if you know how to use Git, you can also download it from GitHub. Okay, and if you are Eclipse user, we understand many students today they when they work on Java project, they use Eclipse most of the time. So in fact, AWS also provides a toolkit for Eclipse, so to make it convenient for you to work on Java with for AWS. Okay. Now in my demo, I will just show you a hand-coded program that I did myself without using Eclipse because I don't waste my time on setting up Eclipse. But that simple example is enough to give you a rough idea how to write a Java program using the AWS SDK. Okay. Right. And then the second document that I listed here is a comprehensive list of all the API interfaces provided by AWS. Okay. And this is the typical, just like a typical Java API reference document. You can find all the classes and methods that are provided by AWS. Right. So now let's look at my example. Let's go back to my virtual machine. Full screen. All right. Let me show you. Okay. Right. So this file here, aws-java-sdk-1.9.18.zip is the AWS Java SDK downloaded from AWS. And this folder is what I got after I unzip it. Go inside this folder. Right, so this is what it contains. I want to say a little bit about what you can get from the AWS Java SDK. So there's a documentation, okay, and there are also some samples. Right? And the first two important folders are lib and third party. Okay, what's on the lib are the core AWS Java SDK jar files. Okay, so these are all the API reference that we saw. The most those classes and methods are implemented by these jars. And the AWS Java SDK also uses some third-party jars, okay, which are I forgot that about. Okay, then in the third-party folder, okay, these are the jars that are provided by other places, not from AWS itself, but are also needed when you program using the AWS Java SDK. So if you use Eclipse, okay, make sure to include both folders in your Eclipse project because you will be needing the jars from both of them, okay, both the AWS's own jars and the third-party jars. If you program your Java code without using Eclipse, then you will find that you may need to include specific jar files from both folders as well, okay? Like what I'm gonna show you shortly. Okay. And the sample folders, there's the sample folder. There are a bunch of samples for working with different Amazon AWS services. Okay. So if you go to this is the same. This is the developer guide. If you go to developer guide, you go to using AWS services. So these are three samples I explained here. I think they go with the examples here: the DynamoDB, EC2, and the S3. Okay. In particular, this EC2 sample does the same thing that the command line example we saw from the AWS documentation. Okay. What it does is it will start an instance from scratch. It will start from the template. Okay. Create the key pair, create a security group, and then start the instance. Okay. But the example that I will show you is simpler, okay, because I don't want to, because to start an instance from scratch is a more involved process. For the sake of time, I'll show you a simple example, which assumes that there's already instance stopped on EC2, and I'm going to repeat the program to start it. Okay, so it does the same thing as the command line example I showed you just now. Okay, so my example is in this folder that I created myself. Okay, let me show you my code. This the Java code that I have is here. Start instance.java. All right. So, well, when you use the SDK to work with the EC2, you'll find that it actually has more overhead to start because if you use command line, just one command, then you can already start the instance. While using the SDK, you have to do a lot of setup on your own, using your own code before you can even try to make a call to start the instance. Yeah, but that's typical the case. That's the typical case for uh, programming, right? So, but once you have the setup right, you can do a lot more things than what the command line can offer. All right, so let me show you this program. Okay, so again, to save time because this is a lot more involved than just typing one command line. Okay, so I will just show you my program, but I will explain line by line. Okay. Um, I will explain what exactly what each line means, what each line is for, and how you can find more information about the particular interface that I'm using here. Okay. So first of all, you need to import the SDK, the AWS SDK libraries that you might need to use. So here some of them I used in my code. Okay, I might need to clean up a little bit. Okay, um, but they are provided by the AWS jar that I showed you before. Okay, all right. So this is my program. So this class, the class is called start instance. The first variable that I have, this is the main reference that points to EC2. Okay, it's called EC2. Okay, uh, let me show you how it is initialized. This represents once I have make a successful connection to EC2, and this is the well that handle will be stored. Okay, this is essentially a handle to EC2. The first function, the first method in my program is this init method. It's a private method, okay, only used internally. And what this init method tries to do is to initialize the connection to EC2. Once that connection is created successfully, then I will be able to use that connection to we can use to do a bunch of different things. Okay? In this example, I will just use it to start my instance. Now, before you try to make a connection to EC2, you need to provide the credentials. Okay, so this is what this credentials variable is for. It is provided. It is to hold the credentials. Okay. Now, how do we populate the credentials? Right. Here we're gonna make our first invocation to the AWS API. Okay. So we will use this class called profile credentials provider. This is a class that provide the credentials through the profiles. Okay, and where are the profiles? Okay, as explained in this comment here, by default, okay, SDK will look for the profiles in the .aws folder. Okay, in those files we saw just now from the command line example. Okay, let me show you again, just in case you already forgot. Right, so in your home directory under .aws, this hidden folder, no, not this one, okay. The two files, one is configure file, which stores the default configuration parameters, and the credentials file, which stores the default credentials for working with AWS, right? And we also saw just now that you can actually create multiple profiles for both the configuration and the credentials. So that is the credential profile that this profile credentials provider class we'll be using, okay, to load the credentials, and the method that to load the credentials is called get credentials. Okay, so how do we know? How do we know this? How do we know what is the proper way to use this method? And even say we don't know what method we should use, how do we find it out, right? So the way to do it is to go to the API reference, right? So here I already defined it. So this is a complete list of all the classes, and the one that we are looking at is this one, profile credentials provider. Okay. Then in this class, if I go to this constructor, you see that it's explained here. Make it bigger. Right. So loading the credential file is deferred until the get credential method is called. Right. So this is exactly what I'm doing here. Okay. So to get the credentials from the credential profile. Okay. Now, so when you make use of the methods provided by AWS Java SDK, pay attention that they may throw exceptions, and you want to catch the exceptions. Okay, and in fact that might happen or not. Okay? And the only way to To figure out what goes wrong is that catch exceptions and figure out what causes the exception. Okay, so this is in fact what I'm doing here. So here I will before I invoke this, I will put this invocation of this SDK method in the try, okay, and I'll try to catch it. If an exception really happens, I will throw out an exception outside of the init function so I can analyze it and print out the useful information plus the exception. Okay, as you can see, this init method that I wrote here, okay, also throws exception. Right? So this goes with this in case the exception thrown by the invocation of the Java SDK method, I will catch it and put it out. So then in my main function, I can analyze it. Okay. Now, assuming everything goes well with loading the credentials, then I can go ahead to create a Amazon EC2 client using these credentials. Okay, and this is what the EC2 this EC2 variable is for. Okay, this stores the handle to the Amazon EC2 client. Okay. Right. And then I need to specify which particular region I want to use. If you remember in the configuration file, actually specifies the default region that you can use. You can load the parameter from that configuration file. Okay. Here I just hard code it. Okay. Here I say the region I want to use. Okay. This object called US East one. That's the name. Okay, is from the region class. Okay. I would initialize it by using the region class as a get region method with the argument regions dot US East one. Okay, so this is just how I initialize this object US East one. And once I have that, then I will use the site region function, okay, of the Amazon EC2 client class to set the region. Okay, so if I want to know more about the Amazon EC2 client class, find it from the API reference as well. Go to the top. AW Amazon, it's called Amazon EC2 client. Yeah. Okay. And you can find all the methods that belong to the Amazon EC2 client. Right. And one of them will be site region. Okay. So again, so once you have this EC2 handle, okay, then you'll be able to invoke all the methods provided by EC2. All right. Now let's look at the next method. Right. So after the successful initialization, then what I try to do is to start my instance. It's a very simple thing, right? So that's what the start method does. It's also a private method, only used internally. Okay, it also can throw out an exception in case anything goes wrong when I try to start the instance. Okay. So how do we start the instance? First, we need to prepare a request, a start request. Right. So this is the start instance request class. Okay, this class for that you can also find it from the API document and over there. Okay, so I create a new start instance request object. Okay, with instance ID. Okay, of this particular ID. And if you remember, this is the ID of my own instance on EC2. Let me go back to management console and show you. This is the ID of my instance here. Right. So of course here it's just this simple example. I just hard coded my instance ID. Well, programming, you may want to make it more flexible. Okay. So basically, what this line does is that I will initialize the start instance request. Okay, using this ID. It would take the it would require to create a new start instance request object and then invoke to get instance IDs. Okay, and then I have this start request. Okay. Now once I have the start request, then I'll be able to exit this request. Okay, the way to answer this request is to use EC2 start instance method with the start request, which is just the one that just populated. Okay, so I can show it from the document here. Okay, if I go to this is the EC2 class. Okay, this is all the method belong to the Amazon EC2 client class. Okay, this one Amazon EC2 client class. I'm looking at the methods here. Okay, there's one called start instances. Oh, pause it. Sorry, because I'm recording, so this scroll is not working really well. I have to click. So you can search it. Well, you can search. There you go. Start instance. This one. Yes, right. So this is the method I'm invoking, right? Start instances. It takes the start instance request object as the parameter, which is why I created it here. Okay, and it will return a start instance result object. So start instance result. Okay, right. So that's it. Okay, and if everything goes well, then I should see the correct result in the start instance result, and I can analyze it. Okay. So, but in this simple example, that's just what I do here. Okay. So now let me show. Then that's it. And then let me show the main function. This is my main function, my program. Okay. What it does, very simple. It does init. Okay. The init function which initialize the connection to EC2, and then run the start function, which will try to start the instance. Okay. And I put both in a try, so that because both of them may throw out an exception, and if it happens, I will catch the exception. Okay. I will try to print out some meaningful message so that I can analyze the error message. So how do I do that? Right. So when you catch exception, you cast it to Amazon service exception. Okay. Once you do that, once you have this Amazon service exception ASCE, I'll be able to I can use the get message method to print out the message of the exception. I use the get status code message to print out the status code. I get error code message to print out the error code, and the get request ID to print out the request ID. Okay. So this provides some basic debugging method for you. Okay, in case you have problem, you can see errors when you make calls to the AWS APIs. Okay. Right. For the sixth time, that's all I'm gonna say about the SDK. This really simple example. Let me show you how it works. Okay. So this is my program. Let me try to compile it. Okay. So I compile it. I should compile this start instance .java. Okay. With this jar file. Okay. This is the core jar file from AWS Java SDK. Okay, it compiles successfully. Now when I run it, okay, when I try to run it, this is where I have to. It's really painful because I have to include a lot of jar files. Okay, in fact, I did a lot of trial and error to find out all of them that I need for this simple program. Okay, so this one you see that the first one is the core jar file from Java SDK, AWS's own Java SDK, and all the rest are from the third-party folder that I showed you before. Okay, remember that you need to include both. Okay, look for jars from both folders uh, when you do your own project. Okay, so now let's see what my instances were stopped. Okay, it's already stopped. I know it's not stopped. It's running. So let me stop it. I should be able to try this program. Let's stop. Okay, let's give it a second for it to stop. It's stopping. To wait for it to be completely stopped. Okay, so this is a critical tool. Okay, when you write your program, you have to uh, be more consider more scenarios, be more considerate, okay, be more careful than my simple example here. Okay, because you cannot assume that the moment you're starting instance will be immediately started, or the moment you stop it, it will be immediately stopped. Okay, there's a transition period. Okay, which is pending and stopping. Alright, now finally stopped. Okay, let's run my program. Okay, this is my entire command line. It's really long. Okay, let's run it. Okay, everything goes well. At least there's no exception. Okay, now let's wait and see why they change the status. See, now it's already changed to pending. Right, from stop, change to pending. Alright, now it's running. Okay, so again, this is a really simple example, but just to get you started. Okay, and in the rest of this makeup lecture, this video, I will give you a brief introduction of your project. Okay, and when you start working on project, when you encounter more problems, okay, of course, try to use the online materials to find answers. Okay, but if you are stuck, don't hesitate to ask me, okay, or ask your classmates. Okay, so discussions, high-level discussions are encouraged. Okay, uh, uh, within the class. Okay, although you cannot really share your code with anybody else outside of your group. Okay, I will emphasize on the policy, okay, for the project when I explain the project. Okay, but I understand these simple demos are just starting points for you. Okay. We'll really start working on project, we encounter more problems. Okay, don't hesitate to ask if you are stuck. So now let's stop here so then we can uh, go to explain our first project.